Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democrat from Illinois and co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus. I'm going to get to Ukraine in just a moment, Congressman, but House Speaker Mike Johnson just a short time ago was talking about the special election out in Long Island, which added one Democratic member to the House conference there. He somehow suggested that the win by Tom Suozzi was a sign of weakness. What do you make of his assessment?
Yeah, that's what people say when they lose. It's whatever it takes to not be too embarrassed. I think you have to look beyond just that special election to the recent elections in Ohio and Wisconsin. I think the fact that the economy is very strong and the fact that when choice is on the ballot, Democrats win, all add to this. And I do think the fact that Speaker Johnson shot down the opportunities to address the issue he said was so important. We had opportunities. The Secretary and the President have asked for thousands of more border guards and changes in asylum policy, only, I think, under orders from candidate Trump that Speaker Johnson shot down.
You think Democrats should run on that issue, the fact that Donald Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson discouraged the Senate from passing that compromise measure?
I think you give the American public the credit it deserves. They can figure this out. They understand that there are issues, but they can clearly see that there were opportunities to address it, and that the Republicans who asked for these things, Republicans who wrote the bill, voted against their own bill in the Senate. So I think you give them credit. But as we remember, it's the economy, stupid, right? That was the line we always learned from. I think the fact that this is an extraordinarily strong economy, and again, the issue of choice are out there, I think those are all factors in the American people leaning Democratic.
All right, and this is all connected to foreign aid, specifically aid to Ukraine. There's this $95 billion foreign aid package the Senate passed, which includes $60 billion for Ukraine, that House Speaker Mike Johnson more or less directly says will not get to the House floor as is. What can you do about that?
Well, look, obviously we're talking about a discharge petition, and it gets down to, are there enough patriots out there who recognize what the words of General Milley and Secretary Austin, right? That if we don't stand up to Putin's aggression, we face doubling our defense budget and inviting more bloodshed. And of course, remembering that the battle in Ukraine is the reasons we fought the Second World War. It's why we formed the United Nations. It's why we formed NATO. I think there's probably 100 or so Republicans who are steadfast in favor of that. I'd like to think there's enough of them that we can work with. And I'd like to think Speaker Johnson would recognize, as narrow as this is, if we're going to govern, we're going to have to work together. And there's more that unites us than divides us.
So our audience knows a discharge petition is a way that you can get things on the House floor without House leadership. It requires a majority of House members basically signing on. Do you think you have every Democratic member willing to sign on to a discharge petition? You said it will take enough patriots. There are Democratic members who may not be willing to sign a discharge petition that has aid to Israel in it.
Look, when I got here, the first bit of advice I got was everything that gets done here gets done in the middle. So we may lose a few members. I can't count on that one way or another, on the left and the far right. There's nothing I can do about that, but I do recognize when there was a standalone provision on Ukraine, it passed overwhelmingly, and we'd recognize that Israel is our staunchest ally in the Middle East. It is the only democratic democracy in the region, and there is extraordinary amounts of humanitarian aid for those in Gaza. And I do appreciate the President's diplomatic efforts to get the hostages released in a short-term ceasefire. I think most Democrats recognize that and understand this has to happen for both reasons.
You did say, though, that the discharge petition depends on having enough patriots. Democrats who do not sign on, would you then question their patriotism?
Look, I'm talking about those who, the people who aren't patriots, who vote against that which they know is right in their hearts. You know, if they believe one stance or another, that's another thing. But I'm talking about the Republicans who know supporting Ukraine and Israel is the right thing to do, and they vote against that which they believe. I believe people who don't vote that way are not patriots. You need to vote that which you believe is the right thing to do.
The foreign aid bill received 70 votes in the Senate, a bipartisan measure, including 22 Republicans. At this point, doesn't seem to be going anywhere in the House of Representatives. Congressman Mike Quigley, co-chair of the Ukraine caucus in the House, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.